And now, the Sci-Fi Original Tuesday Declassified Special, The Belzer Connection.
My voice is my password.
Thank you. 40 years after he was assassinated, why aren't we sure exactly who killed JFK? And who knows what his one-time sort of girlfriend, Marilyn Monroe, did on her last day on Earth? And that's why we are gathered here on the Belzer Connection to find out once and for all if there is a conspiracy to keep us all in the dark. In considering conspiracies, I always start out by asking myself, who stands to gain? Like, for instance, did the British royals stand to gain anything by having Diana Spencer whacked instead of standing by and watching the heir of the British throne have a Muslim stepdaddy in the person of Dodi Fayed? But I'm not pointing any fingers. Let's look at the history of the British monarchy. Just because Richard III drowned his brother in a cask of wine, or because Elizabeth Regina, pardon the expression, cut off her cousin's head for being a Catholic, doesn't necessarily mean that the current Elizabeth is a slave to a family tradition of homicidal jealousy, does it? So suppose the royal family did it. Mind you, I am not saying that they did do it, but if, it beats me why they just don't come out and admit it. They do the O.J. walkaway, no problema. All their lawyer has to say is, Your Honor, these people have been marrying their cousins for 1,100 years. It's a miracle they can floss their own teeth. Thank God, I say thank God, my fellow Americans, that in the land of the free, we have the good sense to break away from this family in 1776. Otherwise, who knows? We could very well be in a situation where the relatively dim-witted, never had a real job heir to a dynasty grew up to be our leader. Like I say, thank God, and God bless America. On to our incredible panel, and I do mean that. First, FBI man, current talk show host, and Watergate mastermind, G. Gordon Liddy. Manhattan music critic, journalist, celebrity chronicler, and gossip aficionado, Michael Musto. TV's favorite firewoman from NBC's Third Watch, Amy Carlson. An individualist and a self-proclaimed bag of soot, a.k.a. the Sex Pistols' Johnny Rotten. Please welcome John Lydon. And finally, my partner on SVU, my buddy in real life, rapper, actor, philosopher, the Iceman cometh, Ice-T. So, was there a crime? First, you need a motive. Diana's time in England was hardly Camelot, as our correspondent Jasmine Lawson found in a not-so-merry Old English.
Richard, I'm standing in front of the home of one of the most celebrated and controversial royals of our time, Princess Diana. To the public, she was the Queen of Hearts. But in royal circles, she was considered a non-conformist who manipulated the press. In other words, a loose cannon.
During the 1970s, the royal family was seen as rather dull, rather boring. Then in the 1980s comes Lady Diana Spencer. She had the Hollywood glamour and she had the style, which was appealing to people around the world.
In 1992, when the couple separated, Diana became an outcast among the Windsors. But her popularity with the people grew, much to the disdain of the royal family.
I was a separated wife to the Prince of Wales. I was a problem, full stop. Never happened before. What do we do with her? She won't go quietly. That's the problem. I'll fight till the end.
After a string of very public affairs that infuriated the palace, Diana began a romance with Dodi Fayed, son of flamboyant Egyptian magnate Mohammed Al Fayed. So when Dodi and Diana arrived at his father's Ritz Hotel in Paris, they were greeted by a swarm of paparazzi. A few hours later, they escaped through the back door and sped off in a waiting Mercedes. What happened next on the journey is the subject of the greatest controversy. I'm now following the same route the Mercedes took the night of the crash. It's not the usual way from the Ritz to Dodie's apartment, but their exit road was blocked. So Henri Paul entered the tunnel of Alma, overtook a white Fiat at speed before crashing into the 13th pillar. The French investigation of the crash showed Henri Paul's blood alcohol level to be over the legal limit, determining in their minds that the crash was an open and shut case of drunk driving. But so many questions remain unanswered. How could the extreme levels of carbon monoxide found in driver Henri Paul's blood be explained? Why did it take Diana's ambulance 2 hours to get to the hospital? Why, en route to Dodie's apartment, were they forced into the Alma tunnel, ultimately leading up to the crash? And could it be that the House of Windsor and the British government found the spectre of a Muslim stepfather to the future King of England simply unacceptable?
It looks like we have the makings of a conspiracy here, Johnny.
Never.
If you
Never.
Well, we know the royal...
That is what happens when a ship of fools goes out of control. Total. Death all round. Sad, don't like death. But these people really did not know what they were doing. Lady Di was definitely eager for some kind of publicity, as was Fayed. And Dodie were a bit of a dope, really. Dotty Dodie.
Right.
You know.
Did you ever meet him?
Well, no. Playboy. You know, well-known. Whatever, just chaos.
That's a broad brush, though, don't you think? There are no Playboys that have any substance?
This one didn't.
Uh-huh. Gordon, what do you think?
Well, I'm probably the only one here who's ever been tasked by his government to assassinate anybody.
Lucky you.
What was actually considered was a technique known to the CIA, the KGB, MI6, and everybody else, where you get a car that is on a curve,
right,
and you hit it at the left rear quarter at a particular speed.
Is that what happened to this
car?
car?
Flip it. No.
No.
And that's why I'm inclined not to believe this, because this was too messy, too unorganized. If MI6 wanted to take him out, there's a lot of different ways to do it. If they wanted to use the car accident way, that was the wrong way.
But precisely what you're saying makes it even more brilliant if they made it look sloppy. We'll get back to you in a second, though. Michael, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I'm open to the conspiracy idea because the royal family always hated her. They hated her divorcing Charles. They hated her marrying Charles in the first place. She was the black sheep of the family, Lady Di. She was the Danny Bonaducci. And it was a tragedy, however she died, mainly because of that horrible Elton John song that followed.
When we come back, it's a Belzer exclusive as Dodie's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, names names and asks for justice.
Absolute, cold-blooded murder.
Welcome back. We have a Belzer Connection newsbreaker, direct from London, my exclusive interview with Dodie's father and the former future grandfather-in-law of the heir to the throne, Mohammed Al-Fayed. Mohammed Al-Fayed rarely goes on camera, but I got him to sit down and tell his side of the story.
Absolute, cold-blooded murder. Terrorist murder. It's not, they say they're fighting terrorists and themselves are real terrorists.
Some people believe that because Diana was going to marry Dodie, that they couldn't have that, that would somehow dilute the monarchy, that they didn't want an Egyptian stepfather for the boys, and this was it's just as basic as that.
That's absolutely an Egyptian, you know, naturally tanned. Her daddy have curly hair, you know, and he have the same, you know. It's just they will not accept that.
Now, Henri Paul was drunk, and he was on medication.
You see him on a video, I see he's complete, 100% super fine, talking to everybody, giving instruction to everyone. But they changed the blood of Henry Paul with somebody else.
There's some talk that Diana was pregnant. What do you think and what do you know about that?
Definitely.
She was?
Definitely.
Dodie's child?
Definitely, definitely. And Dodie confirmed this to me.
He told
you? Already.
That would have been a bombshell.
Yeah, but already all the documents there in the French hospital. Yeah. They know because they took the blood and they know she was pregnant.
What information made you think that it wasn't an accident?
Because I have already, Diana was with me for nearly a couple of weeks in Saint-Tropez. I know she'd been hassled by Prince Philip. She'd been already threatened. That's, you know,
Oh,
That's
really?
just, yeah, and I know exactly she live in danger.
Do we have opinions from our opinionated panel? Ice, what do you think? Think it was a conspiracy, or?
I believe that the royal family didn't want her to get married to that guy.
Right.
I believe that that would have basically threw the royal family into a upside down.
Right.
Whether they actually pulled it off, that's a little bit colder than, I don't know. I mean, but it's not beyond them. I also think it could have possibly just been the paparazzi, because I just got back from England myself and Paris, and it's not like the United States paparazzi. I mean, those...
They're more aggressive than America?
You can't believe how aggressive it is. I mean, I'm not anywhere near the princess, but, you know, you come out of a club and they bombard you and they just do not stop.
If there's any conspiracy here about the royal family to murder people, they would have murdered me years ago.
That is how I want to die. I want to be photographed to death. I think that would be sort of fabulous.
Yep, it's not.
But I don't wish it on anyone. But that's just my personal choice. Yes.
Now on to our professional skeptic. He's one of Britain's top investigative documentary filmmakers. His book, The Diana Conspiracy Exposed, is now available in the U.S. Martin Gregory.
Thank you. When Mohammed Fayed declared that Diana and his son Dodi's deaths were no accident, conspiracy, I went straight to Paris to investigate for British television. I looked into the accident, no accident conspiracy theories, and all of them fell apart like a rotten carpet. None had any credible facts to support them. There is no evidence that Diana was about to marry Dodi. She was not intending to live with him in Paris or anywhere else, and she was most certainly not pregnant by him. Most importantly, she wasn't murdered. These claims have only been made by the Fayed family. You just heard Mohammed talking about it. However, the most important thing is that there is incontrovertible evidence that Fayed's driver, Henri Paul, was drunk. So what is Fayed's motive for denying that Paul was drunk? I say guilt. They told me about how Dodi's bizarre plan to leave with Diana by the back door of the Ritz worked, with the unqualified Henri Paul at the wheel. It was sanctioned by Mohammed Fayed himself on the phone from England. Fayed's son made the plan. Fayed's Ritz hotel provided the limo. Fayed's head of security drove the car, and none of this would have been allowed to happen if Fayed himself had not personally approved it. And that is why he's trying to deflect the blame for the tragedy towards anybody else. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, panel, any thoughts or gratuitously aggressive comments? Gordon?
This was such a bollocksed up mess. I mean, if we're going to kill somebody, there's a well-known technique, and that was not it. The other thing is, you'd have no way of knowing who was going to die in that car, or in fact, whether anybody. It's a Mercedes.
Right.
Built like a Panzer.
Right.
And if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Believe me, if MI6 wants you dead, you'll be dead.
Johnny, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Fiasco, isn't it? I mean,
fiasco.
This is what happens. I mean, like, yes, she wanted to get back at the royal family, and for several righteous reasons too, but she weren't nothing great herself. All of these people were just,
come on,
petty.
look at the work she did
They're
for
petty.
people.
But why wasn't she protected?
And they are inbred,
whatever
not
you think...
protected. Well, there is this thing about, I mean, she was spending Fayed's money here, and as a British taxpayer myself, I don't like to spend on someone who's enjoying other people's money.
Amy, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just saying that's not a fair comment to say that, you know, she wasn't that, all that. She was pretty much all that. I mean, she did incredible
that's my
work.
It's neither fair nor here nor there.
I'm defending Diana, that's all.
I don't know why you do.
Well, because of the work she did for landmine victims and all kinds of different charities. And
those are set up those are set up situations that are very easy for the pompous, privileged few to just go, oh yes, I'll have some of that one.
Okay, on that note, let's take a timeout, and people, please go to sci-fi.com/Belzer and weigh in. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. So who did what to whom in Paris? Jasmine Lawson picks up the trail inside Dodi Al-Fayed's apartment.
This is where it's reported Diana and Dodi were heading after their dinner at the Ritz, Dodi's luxury apartment off the Champs-Élysées. It's still in exactly the same state it was on the 31st of August, 1997, as if waiting for them to arrive. But as we know, they never did. If the affair between Di and Dodi had already shocked the House of Windsor, could rumours of Dodi Al-Fayed's ring shopping in Paris have pushed the royals to take action?
Dodi and Diana were to announce their engagement on the Monday morning, and of that there is no doubt. Dodi collected the engagement ring from Raposi the jeweller on the Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. Now, if Diana was to announce her engagement on a Monday morning, it would be abhorrent to the royal family.
I think anybody who doesn't really grasp the idea that Diana's relationship with Dodi Fayed was a massive, massive threat to the continued stability of the monarchy and the British establishment really just isn't looking at things clearly.
The French medical establishment's handling of the crash and its subsequent findings seem to have created more questions than it answered. To many of those interested in the case, the blood test of the driver Henri Paul is a large piece of the puzzle that simply will not fit.
I'd known Henri Paul over 10 years. He was not a drunk. He was a very sober, quiet, unassuming individual.
Even more puzzling than his alcohol level is the still unexplained carbon monoxide level found in his blood, an unprecedented 21%.
Then there's the period of time it took Diana to get to hospital. Almost 2 hours. I mean, her pulmonary vein was torn, and the only treatment is to rush straight to hospital and sew up the pulmonary vein.
Also, there's the question of whether or not Diana was pregnant. And there's the huge question of why Diana's body was embalmed before it was autopsied. This is against the law in France. It should never have happened. But what it means, rather conveniently, is that it makes null and void any pregnancy test. That's the point.
While so many questions remain, there's one curious fact. To date, no official memorial has been constructed to commemorate the late Princess Diana. The Eternal Flame statue above the Tunnel of Alma is a replica of the torch carried by the Statue of Liberty. It's become the public's unofficial shrine to Princess Diana. Back to you, Richard.
All right. Let me ask you this. Amy, what do you think about the fact that some people think or know that he bought this engagement ring?
Well, I don't think we'll ever know, because I mean, obviously he could buy all the rings he wants. She still has to say yes. And you know, she clearly said in the interview that she doesn't need a man, she needs a satisfying job.
Right.
So.
But it was serious, though, because when they went into his apartment, even like just, you know, you don't put your girl's picture in the same frame.
Right.
That was some real stuff going on in his brain. And that was a pretty big rock. That was not just to say hello rock. That was, you know, I think he was going to pop.
He was well known for giving jewelry to girls.
What do you think of this thing of the white strobe light? Michael, you have any thoughts on this whole
There was something to that blinding light. I mean, this is not poltergeist. Come into the light, Diana. No, this was something real going on.
Right.
And deep down, I still can't shake from my mind the fact that there is nothing more vicious than a nasty queen. I know that for a fact. And that might be behind this whole thing.
Like a true journalist.
Okay, in the interest of fair and balanced sci-fi, which is, after all, our network, for the prosecution, we have Jeffrey Steinberg. He's the editor of Executive Intelligence Review. What do the Windsors have to do with all this? Mr. Steinberg?
Thank you, Richard. The death of Princess Diana was unquestionably one of the most significant events to have occurred since the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Today, all of the essential questions remain unanswered, such as, where is the white Fiat and who was the driver and maybe passenger? What about the near-lethal level of carbon monoxide found in Henri Paul's blood sample, which is the very sample that's the only basis upon which the French magistrates hung their conclusion about drunk driving? And most of all, why did it take the French emergency rescue crew nearly 2 hours to get Diana to the hospital that was less than 4 miles from the crash site? Diana bled to death from the same kind of injuries that President Ronald Reagan survived because she was never brought to the emergency room operating table until it was too late.
Wow. Thank you. Now, I knew the Royals could be bad, but that bad? Martin's come back to join us. Whether they're going to be engaged or not doesn't mitigate the fact that the ambulance was a catastrophe, and everything around this case is very suspect, whether you believe in a conspiracy or not.
It's much nearer the cock-up theory of history, Richard, than the conspiracy.
That's an English expression meaning up, I imagine, right?
By way of technical correction,
yes.
It's not known as a cock-up. It's not known as a f***up. There's so many people involved in it. This is called a cluster.
Cluster. You've heard from our experts, and I'm going to tell you what I think when the Belzer Connection returns.
To uncover the world's deepest conspiracies, you need the right man.
I'm a conspiracy nut, but I'm not nuts.
Richard Belzer hosts The Belzer Connection. Continues next on Sci-Fi.
Conspiracy or not, were Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed murdered? Or was it simply an unfortunate accident? The royals may be safe from the long arm of the law, but not from the inquiring zeal of the Bells. When I first heard about Diana, I thought it was an accident. But if this was an accident, it's the most grotesque, horrifying treatment of someone who should have been taken care of in a much more succinct and quick manner. So I have to lean towards a conspiracy that was purposely made to look like a mess. Thanks so much to our guests, Martin Gregory, Jeff Steinberg, and the panel, of course. And for the rest of you, from crop circles and UFOs to who killed JFK, whenever anyone seeks to cover up a conspiracy, we will shine the light of truth, or at least interesting talk TV, on them. I'm Richard Belzer for the Belzer Connection, and remember, always, always, trust your bells. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
To uncover the world's deepest conspiracies, you need the right man.
I'm a conspiracy nut, but I'm not nuts.
Richard Belzer hosts The Belzer Connection. Continues next on Sci-Fi. The X-Files 10th Anniversary Viewer's Choice Marathon. Wednesday, all day. On Sci-Fi.
Nominated for 6 Emmys, including Outstanding Miniseries.
I'm ready to go with you now.
Steven Spielberg presents Taken, every Sunday at 9, starting September 28th on Sci-Fi.